All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our monthly membership meeting for May 2024. The year is going by so fast, it's kind of freaking me out. Um, so first off, I'll just go through and talk about some updates and things for May, and then there will be time at the end for any questions or anything that anyone wants to discuss. I don't think I have quite as much this month as I did last month. There was a lot of things happening. So I always like to first start with when our next meeting will be. So our next meeting will be Monday, June 3rd. There is a possibility of changing that we might change from the first Monday of the month to the first Tuesday of the month. One reason for that is with Julia moving on, which I think most people know. That's a slide a little bit later on, though. There's a class that she usually teaches on Mondays at 1 p.m. that may be a class that I'm taking over, in which case I wouldn't be able to do this meeting at that time. And so for June, we're good. If we do make a change, it will be July. So I'll let you all know ahead of time if we are going to make that change. And maybe something will shuffle and we won't end up making a change. The other reason for me, though, that I was actually, once I thought about doing that, I was kind of excited because for me having this meeting on Monday, sometimes like if Monday is busy before, it means that I have to have prepared for this meeting ahead of time. And sometimes I didn't. And then I end up doing it on the weekend. And I'm really trying to work less on the weekends and less in the evenings and really kind of keep work to like when I'm at work. What a concept. So for me, it would be kind of nice to have it on Tuesday because then I would have a day before the meeting to prep for it and everything. So just telling all of you all my thoughts out loud. But for now, our next meeting will still be on Monday, June 3rd. And then I'll let you know if there is going to be a change from there. Our exercise of the month is going from all fours to downward dog. So that is a really good transitional movement. We get a chance to work on strength and flexibility and balance. So we'll be going for reps. So each day we will do another repetition. By the end of the month, we'll be doing a lot, but we'll be able to build up our strength throughout the month. And we're also doing vocal drills because May is Better Speech and Hearing Month. And just a reminder that we have a really wonderful speech class live on Zoom 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern time with Stephanie, who is a speech therapist. She's really wonderful. It's a great class. But it is something that we can incorporate vocal drills into our exercise. We don't do it all the time because, anytime you introduce something else, it influences kind of your ability with a physical exercise. And since our main goal in an exercise class is to do really good physical exercise, that's our main focus. But we can incorporate vocal drills and it can make class a little bit harder. It can make class a little bit more real world, like when you're active and you're moving and talking at the same time. It can allow us to be efficient with our exercise, where instead of feeling like you have to do your physical exercise and then your speech exercise, and maybe something else, and that they're all separate and it takes up a lot of time, we can do them together and be very efficient. So, last week was a bonus week in terms of our theme, so we incorporated quite a bit. We will be including the main plan for this month is to do our ahs, our extended, like long holding odd noises into our classes in different ways. And we may incorporate some other vocal drills as well. And then it also reminded me that it has been a while since Stephanie did an educational meeting way back when we first started. Her presentations might have been like in 2020 or 2021. So she has done 2 presentations for us in the past. One really focused on speech and talking and communication, and one focused more on swallowing. Those are both really important, are both worked on in the class. But she did 2 separate presentations a while back. I'm definitely going to invite her to come and do an updated presentation with anything new in terms of the research. And also because now that she's been running this class, excuse me, for a long time, there are some cool things that I think she could add to the educational presentation. So, over the years of based on feedback and requests and how people are doing, she has added and class has evolved over the years. So I think kind of focusing on saying like, here's what we do in class, here's why, here's what it does for you would be really cool to have that as a presentation. So I'm going to contact Stephanie and ask her. It may not happen this month, but it will happen soon. And it is inspired by Better Speech and Hearing Month. We'll be including those vocal drills as well. And that's always optional. If you just want to focus on the exercise, you're welcome to. For some people, they may enjoy combining both together. Some people might find that it just feels like a distraction. So you can always do it in the way that feels right to you. All right, next. This month are in-person meetings. So these are ones that are happening here at Rogue. We have support groups now, 3 meetings a month. The first Tuesday of the month is the one that is for people with Parkinson's. These are led by Darlene Mann, who's a social worker. She really has experience facilitating groups, talking about these kinds of things, coming up with solutions. So we're really excited to have her. So the first meeting of the month is for people with Parkinson's only. Then the second week of the month is for spouses and partners of people who have Parkinson's only, an opportunity for them and chat with each other. And then the third meeting of the month is a support group for people with Parkinson's and their spouses. Basically, people can come on their own if they want to, or people can come with their spouse or partner. So basically, anyone and everyone is invited. So this has, I think we've only had I think we've been doing the support group for 2 months, but we added this third one just last month. We've gotten really good feedback about those so far. So for anybody who wants to come to groups here, I think it's great because, it is all people who are exercising here, are proactive, are doing a lot of things to take care of themselves. And yet it's still nice to have this opportunity to chat. Oh my gosh, the music for the class behind me just got really loud. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit because I have control as well from Sonos. Okay. And then we have our in-person women's group is going to be on Friday, May 10th, this Friday already. Feels early this month, I guess, because of when the first was. This month, we don't have a speaker. We're just going to be chatting, talking about whatever people want to talk about. I've got some ideas that I'm going to bring up. And if you're watching this meeting and you may be an online member, but you live locally, you are welcome to come to this meeting. And then we will have one holiday closure this month. We will be closed on Monday, May 27th for Memorial Day. So we'll be closed for in-person classes and online classes. Anything that would normally happen on a Monday. So that's our in-person meetings. Our online meetings for this month, Wednesday the 8th, already in 2 days, is our women's group, our online women's group. Julia has been leading this group since we first started kind of our women's empowerment series, which was over a year ago. Alex will be taking over since Julia will be leaving us to do her residency. So Alex is going to join this month, kind of get to know people, and then she will be taking this meeting on going forward. And it can continue as it has. It can evolve a little bit. We are open. And one thing that Alex had brought up at one point in time is doing a little bit of a book club. There are a lot of cool books out there, in some cases that really are about learning or empowerment or just interesting. And she had brought up and said, have we ever tried doing a book club? So that's something, even if we wanted to try that 1 month, pick a book, everybody reads it, come and discuss, that's an option. So we have endless opportunities for what we do and how we do things. So she'll be joining, she'll give some ideas. You all can let her know what kinds of meetings you like, what's helpful. Do you want speakers? Do you want to discuss topics? And she will continue with you all in the way that you want to do it. And just a reminder to any men who are watching, we are definitely open to having men's groups as well. So let me know if you want it. We'll get that scheduled and organized. But so far it had really been mostly women who had been interested in that type of meetings. On Monday, May 20th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern time, we will have our online monthly educational meeting with a woman named Olivia Streeman on service dogs for Parkinson's. So this is one of the topics that we've had a request for. And it just so happened that I saw she gave a presentation for PMD Alliance, which that video is available on YouTube. So if that's something you're interested in watching sooner than later, you're welcome to. Her father has Parkinson's and utilizes a service dog. And then I believe she is involved in training of service dogs and kind of involved from the professional side. So we have kind of both those perspectives. So I'm very excited to have her this month for our meeting. And even though, there may be a video available to watch online, I think it's really nice, when we can invite someone to come and do a meeting specifically for us. In many cases, I'll give her a little background on, our membership and our members. And then we have the opportunity to ask questions. So when you watch a video, there might be questions that you have about how does this work or what happens with this. And in a video, you don't necessarily get the opportunity to have those questions answered. So when we have someone live with us, we have the opportunity for that as well. So I'm very excited for that meeting. That will be live on Zoom. We also will record it so that we have it. If you're not able to join live, you can watch it later. We'll be closed for Monday, May 27th for Memorial Day for our online classes as well. Special events in May. So the Parkinson Foundation, which is one of the national organizations in the US, that they do a lot of great work. We in the past have received community grant funding for them. That's how we got our women's group started in the first place, which we did online and in person. They do wonderful educational events, have lots of resources, rainbow books, great information on their website. They do an event called Moving Day that is a fundraiser to raise funds for the organization to help support community grants and these types of services, also to get together in community and to move. So the ones in our areas, and I think it's pretty similar in all places, there are lots of vendors there. They usually have different forms of movement like Tai Chi and boxing and dancing. And then there also is a walk. And the walk is not usually a long walk, like a 1 to 2 mile walk. And can obviously be modified to be any distance that you want to do. So our local one will be happening on Sunday, May 19th in Irvine. It starts at 9 a.m. We will likely have a team. I do have an event for Michael J. Fox Foundation on Saturday, May 18th. So I'm going to be attending that event, and it's out of the area. So I'm working on my travel to make sure that I can get back in time for the event. And I got to work some things out a little bit, but we always have some people there. So we'll be there. And then they do these events all over the country, and they often are in like April, May, possibly beginning of June, depending on kind of where you live and the air and the weather. I think they want it to be as nice of weather as possible. So some places need to have meetings or their events a little bit later, some a little bit earlier to avoid the heat. So this site I know is not something that you can type in on your computer. It's way too long of a link. But if you look up movingdaywalk.org, I don't even think you have to have the events there. Just movingdaywalk.org. It will list all the different areas. Like you can put in your zip code. It'll show you the ones that are happening locally, or you can scroll through and see all the different events. There may not be one happening right in your town, but maybe there's one that's not too far away to consider driving and attending. I don't know exactly how many they do each year, but they do quite a few. So that's one that I would highly encourage you to check out and see if there's one in your area. And I highly encourage you to participate if there is one. All right, staff updates. We have a new physical therapy student with us for 8 weeks. Her name is Mackenzie. She's from USC. So she primarily, when we have students, most of the work that they do with us is in person. What they're here for is really to get experience working with people. In this case, specifically working with people with Parkinson's. We want there to be as many physical therapists out there in the world that either specialize in Parkinson's, or even if they maybe don't specialize in it exclusively, they have more experience than average and know how to challenge people appropriately and know what the research is and how to work with people. So we really enjoy having students. It brings a great energy in to us as well. And we're really excited for them to learn. So usually they help mostly with in-person classes and work with some of our members. She will be joining Alex for a PD School Watch Party on Mondays to get to learn from that content. And in some cases, students, like when we had Alyssa, she had a dance background, and so she taught the dance class while she was here. So sometimes there's opportunity for our students to teach online classes or get involved. So we'll see. And then sometimes they do presentations online as well. So she just started today. Today's her very first day. So we'll get things organized for what her clinical is going to look like. And I'll let you know if there's more opportunity to interact and work with her, especially online. Other update is that I think most of you have heard by now that Julia is taking on a new opportunity. She is completing a neurologic residency program in Boston at the VA there. So a residency program is usually a year-long program that physical therapists can do. It's optional for PTs. It's different than with medical school where it's a required part of training. For physical therapists, we go to PT school, we graduate, we take a test to get our license. A residency is something that is optional, that if someone really wants to specialize in an area within physical therapy, they do this intensive program. So I've done a residency, Alex has done a residency. We both really wanted that intensive experience to learn as much as possible, really be the best therapist we possibly could be, specializing in working with people who have neurologic conditions. So a neurologic residency does work with, like at the VA, I think she will see more people who've had a spinal cord injury or traumatic brain injury. That's one area of neuro PT that's different than working with people with Parkinson's. So she'll have more variable experience, get to work with some different populations. She will be taking classes. She might be doing some teaching. She'll be working with clients. She'll be getting mentoring. She might work on research projects. There's a lot of cool opportunities. And what they say that doing a residency does is that in a year, you basically learn what would take you 5 years if you were just kind of out working a regular job. So she is about to learn a lot and come out being, she's already a wonderful physical therapist. And so I'm very excited for her. But of course, we will miss her a lot. We're sad that she's leaving, but she's leaving for a good reason. So that helps us be a little bit less sad. With her leaving, though, at first I didn't know if I would hire anyone else because I don't hire just any PT out there. We're very specific and choosy about who we hire. And our environment is unique. So it's not the right environment for just any physical therapist. So I didn't know if we were going to hire. I had it organized where between the rest of the team, myself, Alex, Maddie, and Jamie, we would have been able to kind of absorb pretty much everything that Julia was doing. And we just would have been a little bit busier than before. But in the meantime, I got an email from a physical therapist named Catherine Moses. She's local in the area, really loves working with people with Parkinson's. She currently is doing mobile physical therapy where she goes in and works with people in their home. And she just realized that it's not the setting that she really wants to be working in full time. She does enjoy seeing people in their homes, but she really misses working with a team. She misses having access to specialty equipment. She's really excited about kind of how Rogue is set up differently, and in that, you know, getting to see people over the longer period of time and really getting to implement the research in physical therapy that is covered by insurance. It is great, but it is so limited by insurance for how often you might see someone, for how long you get to see them. And unfortunately, it really is kind of underdosed relative to what the research says. Specific for someone who's had a stroke, there's research that really says you need to do high intensity physical therapy and exercise for 6 months to see the benefit. And no one gets sick, like almost no one gets 6 months of physical therapy, especially if you're doing a frequency like 3 times a week. People are not getting to go for 6 months. And so insurance is really not covering what the research says is beneficial. And so that's what is exciting about Rogue is we get to figure out how to actually implement it, make it as accessible as possible. So Catherine had sent me an email saying she was interested in working with us, and just that partially the timing was right. And then we met and we just hit it off right away. I really like her a lot. I think she's been a PT about 6 years, so she has more experience. In some of our PTs, she's worked in different settings. She's worked with people in different ways. So it just turned out that it was a really good fit. So I'm very excited for her to be joining the team. She will start June 11th. She will be taking over Julia's Monday and Friday in-person classes that she teaches. And then Julia currently teaches online on Thursdays. So Catherine will be taking over Thursdays from Julia starting realistically probably the beginning of July, because we will get her the training will start with in-person classes where I can teach and she can see. She basically will be taking the class, and then we'll transition over time where she starts teaching some of it and I teach some of it, and transition her all the way till the point where she's teaching the whole class. So we're basically going to go through that process first in person, so that when she starts teaching online, it's a great power moves class, a great boxing class, and doesn't feel like someone is jumping in and doesn't really know what they're doing or why we're doing what we're doing. So that'll probably be beginning of July, but she could pick things up really fast and be ready sooner. So in the meantime, on Thursdays, I will be teaching the online Thursday classes until she's ready to take over. And she does have not a professional background in dance, but she is from Texas originally, and she has more experience with line dancing and some dancing like that. So she may help me out with the dance class. We've got some options. I don't know exactly how it's all going to play out because we want to get her started first, but I'm very excited for her energy and her excitement to work in this setting. And so now it's just a matter of really, getting her trained up in our approach and the types of classes that we have. So that will happen starting June 11th. So you'll all get to meet her. I'll share more information about her. And I'm really excited for this because I think she's going to be a great fit. Future educational meetings. So in May this month, we have service dogs. In June, Dr. Catherine Long Gardner will be joining, talking about low blood pressure, orthostatic hypotension, and also research that's happening at UCSD. She is at University of California, San Diego. So she's going to be coming up. I believe it's on a Wednesday. Let me double check. I should have that on the slide. I think the last time I had it, though, it was far enough out. So let's see. Yes, it is on Wednesday, June 5th. That is when she was available. And so she's going to come in person to Rogue to present. And so one time before, we had a presentation in person and we joined the Zoom meeting. We used a good webcam, and I think the audio and the video was good. So we are going to do that again this time. When she comes and presents in person, we're going to basically stream it on our meeting and record it. I will then, and I probably will ask her anyways, if she is available to join us at another time on Zoom to just do a straight Zoom presentation, because in some cases the recordings work pretty well of a live presentation, but things like slides are a little bit harder to see. So I'm going to check and see if she's available to do one online on Zoom as well. So I'll let you know for sure what she says. But we will have this meeting. And so if you are someone who experiences low blood pressure or lightheadedness or dizziness upon standing at times or with changes in position, you may want to hear about, what you can do to reduce this and improve your blood pressure and improve how you feel. And she's also going to talk about research studies that they have going on, and that might be something you're interested in participating. In some cases, you would need to be local, but there may be some cases where a research study has multiple sites, and there might be a site in your area that you could participate in. One study that they had going on a couple of years ago was developing a device that would measure blood pressure continuously. So right now, to take blood pressure, we've got a cuff on your arm. We hit the machine, or maybe we take it manually, and we have kind of that one snapshot in time. But it's pretty difficult to see like what happens with your blood pressure as you exercise. Like, does it go up throughout exercise? Does it go up and down? What happens with changes in position? It's hard to measure all that. So if there was a continuous monitor, especially for people who have low blood pressure or fluctuating blood pressure or high blood pressure, it would be great to see what is your blood pressure doing throughout the day. So it'll be exciting to hear kind of updates from her on research that they've done, where are they at with these things, and what is current research if anybody wants to participate. Other topics that we have on our list to bring people in to speak on is bone health, dystonia and dyskinesia, stem cells, new treatments in the pipeline, neuropsychology, and having a neuro-ophthalmologist here with us. So let me know if there are any other topics that you'd like me to add to the list. And basically, we're just kind of going and seeing in what cases do we want to have a speaker come in. Like dystonia and dyskinesia is one that I would like to have a speaker. And I think Dr. Chen, one of our newer movement disorders neurologists in the area, would be a great one to come and talk about this. So I'm going to contact her. We have Dr. Claire Henchcliffe, who's a neurologist doing stem cell research. She is an extremely busy woman, so the chances of getting her are not super high, but I'm still going to try. I have a neuropsychologist, and we do know of a couple neuro-ophthalmologists in the area. So basically working on, making contact with speakers on the specific topics and getting those scheduled. So these are the ones we have so far. Let me know if there are other topics. You can either put those in the chat, or as soon as I'm done with the slides, just you can unmute and let me know what other topics you'd like me to add to the list. Research check-in. So I put this in the daily email a couple of weeks ago. I think it's hard for me to remember exactly what day. But my friend and I have a podcast called I Love Neuro. And we recorded a podcast with Daniel Korkos, who is a researcher. Let's see what happens if I click. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. That takes me to listening to it on the podcast. So we won't listen to it here. But Daniel Korkos is a researcher at Northwestern University who has been involved in a lot of studies on exercise for people with Parkinson's. He was the primary or the principal investigator for study on strength training. I can't remember what the acronym for that was, but it was a 2-year study where people did progressive strength training, and they showed that people's It slowed progression of their symptoms over time when assessed in an off state. And now he is focused on aerobic exercise. They have a multi-site study called Sparks 3, which Kim, I think you mentioned, you know about that one. I am going to switch over to away from slides over to my web browser so that I can share this information. So what's exciting about Sparks 3, this is the first exercise trial that has been designed in a way to specifically ask, can exercise slow progression of Parkinson's? It may seem silly or surprising, but of the hundreds of studies that have occurred so far looking at exercise for people with Parkinson's, most of the time they're looking at symptoms and does it help symptoms? And this is important. We want exercise to help symptoms, but there is no treatment currently that has been shown to actually be able to slow the progression of Parkinson's. And that is the most important. And so they have organized this study in a way that if they prove their hypothesis, we will be able to say that exercise does slow the progression of Parkinson's. And specifics, high intensity exercise, kind of what their study is utilizing for exercise is what will be shown to slow progression of Parkinson's. Hopefully that will just be the first step in then implementing other types of exercise and seeing, which ones are able to slow progression of Parkinson's. And ideally, we eventually have a buffet of exercise options for you, and certain types may be more helpful for symptoms. And if you have really bothersome symptoms, maybe that's what we want to focus on. But of course, we want to focus on the exercise that can help you slow the progression of Parkinson's. That is very important. So this Sparks 3 study is something that is currently happening. They are recruiting hundreds of people, and they have 24 sites across the country. So unfortunately, in our area, we don't have any in Southern California. We don't have a site, but there is one at University of California, San Francisco, Oregon Health Science University, Intermountain, University of Colorado, Minnesota, Iowa State, Washington. So kind of Midwest and East Coast actually have a lot more sites than we do out on the West Coast. So if you are interested in participating in this study, you do have to not be taking medication for Parkinson's yet. So to be the cleanest that they can be with this study, they are accepting people who are in the first few years, maybe up to about 3 to 4 years of having Parkinson's. So you do have to be early in your diagnosis and not taking medication yet. So I know that excludes a lot of people, unfortunately, but it's very important for them to be very strict with this initial study to hopefully prove their hypothesis. And then they'll be able to expand and see kind of how does this impact other people in other groups. And it's not because medication is bad or anything. It's because medication influences the testing that they're doing. And so they really need to be clean and not have medication influence their testing to determine if exercise is helping slow the progression of Parkinson's. But so if you are somebody who is in the first 3 or so years of being diagnosed and not taking medication and you're interested in participating in the study, I would highly recommend that you do so. If you have had Parkinson's longer, if you're on medication, if you're not really interested in participating in research, the good news is you can take what this research has said from their phase 2 study that they're now testing at an even greater scale, and you could implement that now. So you don't have to wait until the study is released. I think it's going to be like about 2 years until they've recruited everyone and then have the results to be able to publish. So in the meantime, we can start doing this kind of exercise. So we had a conversation with Daniel Korkos, and that podcast is a conversation. If you want to listen to it, I found it fascinating. He's another person who I want to have come in as a guest speaker with us to talk about exercise and be able to ask him questions. Our conversation covered a lot of different things, and we talked for close to an hour, and I still had a lot more questions for him. So a few things that came out of that conversation, though, is one, we bumped up our online cardio time from 35 to 40 minutes. Previously, we had one day that was 40 minutes, one day that was 35, one day that was 30. We were kind of doing it a little bit variable. And now with their research, they do 5 minutes of warm up, 5 minutes of cool down, and 30 minutes of high intensity in the middle. So I decided, we're only 5 minutes away from that. Why not just bump it up by that 5 minutes and adhere to what this research protocol is as close as possible? I asked about that in an email, and I got multiple positive responses. Everybody was ready to add that 5 more minutes. So that helps us be more similar to this research study that's happening. the other thing that was really interesting about in our conversation that we talked about is this whole idea that we are trying to work at a certain percentage of our max heart rate. So they are comparing what they call moderate exercise, which is 60 to 65% of maximum heart rate, to high intensity, which is 80 to 85% of max heart rate. And typically, like if you use an app or something, it is estimating your max heart rate based on your age. And if you're using the Cavornan formula, it also takes into account your resting heart rate, which is important. The thing with Parkinson's is it can affect the autonomic nervous system. Some people really have a hard time elevating their heart rate. And so this is one of the questions I asked him is, what if people have a hard time getting their heart rate up? Does that mean they're excluded from the study? And he said, no. And the way that they determine max heart rate for this study is that people actually go in and do cardiopulmonary exercise testing. So they are not using an estimate just based on their age. They are saying for each person who comes into this study, we're going to come in and do this testing and we're going to see what is their max heart rate. And then we're going to do the math for the percentages based off of their max heart rate. So, you might have two 65-year-olds come in who have been diagnosed 1 year, have tremor, have similar symptoms, but one of them does an exercise test and they get their heart rate up to 160, and the other person maybe gets it up to 114. So he, what was exciting to hear is he said, oh, absolutely. The person who has a hard time getting their heart, doesn't elevate their heart rate as much during exercise, doesn't mean they can't be in the study. It just means we need to do the math appropriately. And this is something that comes up so much in discussion with our members of, are they getting in the zones or not? And some people feel like they're working really hard and they're just barely getting to 60%. And it could be that just the way that we're measuring that is flawed because we're just using an estimate based on your age. And so it might be better for anyone who really cares. One option that you could do is in your area, you could look up and see where could I do a cardiopulmonary exercise test. It usually is going to be an exercise physiologist who runs it. They'll be measuring your heart rate. And then they also measure VO2 max during the workout. You go in, it sounds like at least for their study, there probably are a couple different ways of doing it, but for their study, you come in and you're on a treadmill, and first they kind of get you going at the fastest speed that you can walk comfortably. And then they really increase the elevation to get your heart rate up. And I don't think it takes that long. It's maybe about 10 to 15 minutes of exercise, but you really get pushed to see what is the fastest that your heart rate can go. What is the hardest that you can possibly work? And now you have essentially like a true physiologic heart rate max for you as an individual. And then your percentages are based off of that. So this is something that I'm trying to figure out, kind of how to implement this. And one I think is I want to do a meeting on cardiopulmonary exercise testing. Some people may get that formal testing. He also said that even without doing that formal testing, we as therapists could work with people and do a one-on-one session where we see how high can we get their heart rate, and we use that as a measurement. Billy was just here. So just last weekend. Yeah, just last weekend, Billy was in town from Texas, and she brought in her heart rate monitoring from her workouts and said, it has gone as high as 202. And based on her age and estimate, her heart rate, it would be much lower than that. So we said, okay, for you, I think this 202 is actually your physiologic max heart rate. We're going to do our 60, 70, and 80% goals based off that being your max heart rate. So we did that math, and now she kind of knows. And I said, we did the math for 85%. I said, if you go above 85%, that's where I really think that you should back off a little bit. The highest the high intensity is to be working between 80 and 85. You don't want to go too much higher than that, especially depending on how someone feels. But to have a true number like that instead of just an estimate just makes for a much more accurate workout and what we're doing. So this is something that if you are someone who has struggled because it feels like your heart rate goes much higher or stays lower than expected based on the estimate, doing a more specific test might be something that you're interested in doing, or even kind of doing a self workout and like, what's the hardest you can possibly work? How high does your heart rate come? And then does it kind of plateau? If you have any history of cardiac diagnoses or problems, you would not want to do this on your own. You want to do this under supervision. But otherwise, if you're exercising at a pretty high level and you want to kind of test it out and see how high it goes, that's something that you could do. So we talked about these things and more. I would like to have him here to talk to our group about exercise and high intensity. I think he'd be coming from a really great perspective and would love to talk to all of us and people who are really exercising quite a bit. So I will get in touch with him and invite him to do so. And I have included basically this paper because the study is happening currently. This paper was really just describing the protocol for the paper. So what are they going to do? What are they looking at? What are they expecting to see? And then once they get through all the participants, we will have results and then that will get published. But this allows us to say, well, we don't have to wait for it to be published to start to implement this research. And it'll be interesting to see, of course, what the results are, but just even reading a protocol paper, there's a lot that can be learned from it. So I wanted to share about that. Always want to share current research and what's going on. And I just thought for anyone who is trying to work at that high intensity level, I want you to be able to work with the most accurate information possible. And, knowing what your true heart rate max is might be the best way to do that. So if you want to listen to the podcast, we are on pretty much all the places where podcasts can be found. The name of our podcast is I Love Neuro. And this conversation with Dr. Korkos just came out maybe today. It is a very new release. We recorded it just a couple weeks ago. It came out just today. So if you want to listen to that, feel free to. And if you want to read more about the study, you can go to sparks3pd.com and I will keep you all updated. So that is all I have today in terms of talking about things that are being updated and potential changes. So no schedule changes this month. As Julia leaves and Catherine gets started, like I mentioned, there's going to be a transition in terms of her taking over classes. I'll be working with her on training for all of that and the transition. And if there are going to be any changes to the schedule, as of right now, there's nothing specific planned, but if there will be any changes, even just during that training period, I will let you all know. So at this point, I can open it up to any questions or discussion. So if you're watching the recording, thanks. Let me know if you have any questions and I will stop the recording at this point in time.